Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone, depending on where you are dialed in from, and welcome to our webinar on mapping your way to success with AnyRoad Atlas. We are super excited to share with you some new capabilities that we've launched and talk to you a little bit about how it works, how customers are using it, and actually show you a demo of the product. So for that, I am joined here by Mark Smith, one of our product experts, a solution consultant, who's going to give you a deep dive demo of the product. My name is Shalin. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it is, why we built it, and how customers are using it. Before we jump into the meat of the presentation, a couple of housekeeping notes. Q&A, we are reserving time at the end of this webinar to answer your questions. So throughout the conversation, please feel free to submit questions through the Q&A widget in your Zoom window, and then we'll look at those and reserve them till the end. If you're having any trouble with the audio, you can configure your settings on the bottom left. If you have any questions, just chat in. We can help you out. And then we're on social media. Feel free to tweet at us at AnyRoad and talk to us and share your thoughts on Atlas. And then lastly, we are recording this, so if you either want to share this with folks afterwards or listen to it later, don't worry about taking screenshot the slides or anything. We will have everything to you tomorrow in a follow-up email. All right, so the agenda. So I'm going to start by just giving you an overview. What is Atlas? Why did we build it? I'm going to talk to you about some customer results and use cases and share, how are people using this? We've been live for a little while now, and we have some great examples of how people are using it, what insights they're deriving from Atlas. And then, as I mentioned, Mark will give you a demonstration of the technology. And then lastly, we will take your questions. All right, let us jump into the Atlas overview. So when we talk to, I know some of you are existing customers, you're familiar with AnyRoad, some of you have less familiarity. So to set some context, the companies that are using AnyRoad are running amazing experiential programs, whether that is retail classes in store locations, pop-ups, field activations, or brand homes and visitor centers, things like breweries and distilleries that people are coming to visit. And all of the folks, when we talk to them consistently, when they run these experiences, they have a couple of things they don't understand. They see how happy people are when they come to their experience. They can feel that when they're on the ground with the attendees of the experiences or virtually. What they have trouble understanding is, what about that experience was impactful? Why did it drive the outcome that it drove? We can see someone is happy, but why is that? What is it, and how can we do more of it? Did, when they leave that experience, does it have a long-term impact on them? You'll hear a lot of stories of people visiting and learning how beer is made at the Guinness storehouse, for example, and then drinking that beer for life after seeing that. So understanding when and how it's having that impact is critical to brands. And then putting that in context. So, there are a lot of experiences that are probably similar to yours, and you want to understand if you're overperforming or underperforming, and if you're underperforming in certain segments, why is that? And so these are the questions that we get a lot, and that we help a lot of brands to solve, and that we've deepened our capabilities in Atlas to help solve those questions. And one way that we've started thinking about that, and a little bit of the framework we use when building these capabilities, is thinking about this concept of, to truly understand and answer those questions and understand the impact of your experiences, you have to think about, to put data in context. So you take one piece of information like an NPS score, and if you look at the average NPS score for your experience, that's only going to give you so much insight. And a lot of our customers take that and may not be able to truly act on that, because it's not as deep or contextual as they need to answer those questions. If you layer in a piece of information like demographic, that gets you a step further. So let's say you are a brand with a product that's primarily consumed by a very specific demographic, and you're running experiences to broaden your appeal in a different demographic. You'd really want to know that information in context of your NPS score to understand if you're doing that effectively. Are you tailoring the experience to a more broad demographic? And then post-experience spend is another element that starts to fill in the pieces of that puzzle to say, okay, I ran this experience to broaden my demographic, bring in more consumers to the brand. I want to understand what they're doing after the experience, and how they're spending, how loyal they are to my brand, to help me really understand the impact of that experience. And then with those insights, you can take pretty targeted actions, like adding a new experience as part of your portfolio to focus on a specific demographic, knowing what it's going to drive in lifetime value. And you can make really targeted, focused decisions that improve the impact of your experiences. And that's exactly what we're solving for with AnyRoad Atlas. So I'm going to give you an overview of specific capabilities, specific features within the platform and how they help you do that. So first and foremost is what some of you, if your customers have seen the product, have seen in the platform in the past, reports and insights. So immediate dashboards that give you quick visibility into the impact of experiences, how they're performing. What we've added to Atlas and are going to focus on today is starting to paint that three-dimensional picture and helping you understand why they're driving the impact they're driving and how to improve them. So the couple of capabilities that we'll be talking about are Explore, which is allowing you to segment your experiential data by demographic, psychographic, experience type, and more to identify trends in what's going on with your experiences. You can then layer on industry benchmarks for a couple of key industries and put that in context. So understand exactly what segment, let's say you're focused on, how you're comparing to the industry, and then drilling into feedback analysis to understand why. Let's say you are highly overperforming your peers, your industry in your target demographic. Most of our customers would want to understand exactly why is that, and how can they transfer that to other experiences and other demographics. And to give you a little bit of a preview before Mark shows you the demonstration, here's an example of how you'd look at something like Explore and industry benchmarks. So you're able to look at your NPS score over time, and you can see exactly when it dipped below the industry benchmark, which is in the last 2 months. So you know something changed in those last 2 months. You want to drill into it and understand exactly what's changed. And that's when you'd go into feedback analysis and surface through NLP, which we're applying to all the text feedback that comes into the platform, is surfacing the themes of what's driving positive and negative impact to NPS and exactly how much it's impacting NPS. So you take something like Zoom, and let's say we're looking at those last 2 months we saw in the last visual, and we see that something changed with how Zoom's being used in virtual experiences. Well, you could actually in the platform click on that and drill into the specific text feedback that's come in about Zoom, read, understand, and hopefully improve that so you get back above the industry average and can overperform. So the question we get is, so all of that sounds great. When are people going in? How exactly are they using it? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples that Mark will piggyback off of when he shows you the demonstration. First and foremost is most experiences are focused on driving a specific outcome, whether that be by demographic, focused on new versus existing customers, or some other demographic, right? When you're running an experience, there's a goal in mind. And you want to understand if you're actually successfully performing to that goal. So are your experiences having an impact to the audience that you're focused on? So that's one of the first and foremost things that people go into Atlas a question they go in to answer. And so something that gets the demographic example we looked at earlier. Sometimes it could be whether a new versus existing customer breakdowns, understanding how you're doing with people who aren't loyal or aren't existing customers of your brand. Second is the example we just gave when we looked at Zoom, which is where do I focus to improve my experiences? So, I can with everything we're going to show you in Atlas, you can actually look at exactly which demographic, which experience type, which specific experience should you focus on improving to drive more impact. And then lastly is what exactly do I improve? So we know that people that are running experiences oftentimes don't have time to analyze in depth because you have to get to the next experience and actually execute on it, right? So if you can actually take a step back and get a solution through AnyRoad on exactly what to improve about your experiences to increase impact, that can be extremely powerful. And let me give you an example of that from a real customer. So we've anonymized the customer here, but I'm going to tell you how all that comes together to run a better experience. So this customer noticed a declining overall NPS, and NPS was one of the primary metrics they used to evaluate success of their experience. And in aggregate, they just saw that the NPS was decreasing. They saw that it was lower than the industry benchmark, but that only gives them so much. Back to that three-dimensional data concept, they need to understand more to figure out what's actually due to change that. So what they did is they looked at it by demographic, and they saw by age group that the 61 plus demographic was drastically bringing down the NPS. It was actually one of the largest age groups that were attending, and the NPS was far below the industry average. So that was kind of intriguing to them. Then they dug into the feedback analysis that we mentioned. So what are these people saying about our experiences? What are the themes? They didn't have to read through every single piece of feedback. They got the themes surfaced up to them through feedback analysis. And that theme was walking. So they knew their experience. They know that there's a lot of, they know that they have a couple of different experiences you can sign up for when you attend. And some of them involve more walking than others. And some of them are more expensive than others. Then they read through a couple of the key pieces of text feedback and saw that the tour that doesn't involve walking is a little price prohibitive for many of their attendees. And so they weren't taking that tour. They were taking the one where they do have to walk a lot. And for that demographic, that was bringing down their overall experience. So that was a very tangible action that they could take to improve the experience. They took that back. They created a middle ground of an experience that sits in between where you don't have to walk as much, but it is not price prohibitive for the demographic, and immediately saw an increase in NPS and more revenue from their experience. So I love that example. We would show you more specifics and can answer questions about it as well. But love that example as something that allowed the brand to know where to focus, to make sure that they're actually driving more impact with their experiences, and to solve that really quickly without having to spend a ton of time on their own analyzing that information. So I know I've given you a lot of detail about Atlas and how you can use it. I'm sure you want to get into the technology and see exactly what it looks like. So for that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark Smith, who is going to open up the platform and show us.
All right. Thanks, Shalin. Appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. Again, I'm Mark Smith, the solutions consultant here at AnyRoad, and I'm going to walk you through Atlas. Share my screen really quick. And Shalin, before I start going on, can you just confirm it's showing up okay on the screen?
It is.
All right, excellent. I want to start this off by telling you there's a whole part of the AnyRoad platform that we're not talking about, which is the operational side of things under Experience Manager. So if that is something that you want to talk about, how we handle that, we can certainly follow up after on a conversation. We're going to spend the time talking about Atlas today, obviously. On the insights and reports, some of you who have seen the platform before have likely seen this. It's going to be focused on primarily 3 points of interest. So your sales and acquisition, your customer base, and then the brand perception overall. So you've got the high level numbers up here. And when we get into sales and acquisition, what we're going to do is allow you to look at the revenue being generated by each experience. So you can take a look at that over any given period of time. If you're doing add-ons or selling things inside, where your tour is going on, you can track and see what the sales are from there. You can look at the booking source to see primarily where people are booking from. Is it online? Is it in person? Are you taking them, as it gated at the front desk where you're doing it as well? So you can take a look at that. Capacity utilization, which is important. If you take a look here at like the 2:00 p.m., you can see there's a tremendous amount of capacity that's going on these days of the week. So you may want to adjust and add some different tour times and things like that to account for it. The popular online booking times to allow you the opportunity to be able to adjust marketing times and things to really cater to the prime, the prime times that people are going on and booking. And then ideally, how far are they booking in advance by experience? So again, we're tracking all that for you. On the customer side of things, so the demographics here, you're able to identify, through the checkout questions where people are coming from. So you can get an idea of how far they're traveling, where they're actually located. It's a really great insight to see a percentage breakdown of your customers by city there. Average age. So if we take the age for any gated experiences, you can see that demographic broken down, over the age range by experience type. I'm going to go into this a little bit more when we get into Explore, because this is a really key component as well. We've got an algorithm built in on gender here. So when it takes the first name and the location, and it will predict what their gender is, so you don't have to ask. It's got about a 96% accuracy rate. And then also what types of customers are visiting. Are these new customers or are these existing customers? And again, breaking that down by experience. Shalin hit on this earlier, and this is a big part and a big component of what we're looking is to see the impact on brand perception as it relates to your experiences. So this is a holistic view of an overall view of the NPS score, which is going to be the avenue I take for the demo here. So you're able to see, and what we're doing when we're getting this is the baseline is asking everyone pre-experience what is their affinity for the brand, 0 to 10 as it relates to NPS. So if I go in there and I have no affinity, I've not had any interaction, I select a 0, and then I come out of that experience. So I'm initially a detractor. I come out of that experience and I'm on fire for the brand. Shalin gave an example of you go there, you watch how the beer is made, and then you're a fan for life. So I come out as a 10. That's going to show the impact on brand perception when it comes to the actual experience. The same thing true of a promoter. So if it's an existing customer, they're a promoter of the brand, and then something just doesn't land with the experience, you'll see that impact negatively as they move to a detractor. So now, again, those are high-level, executive-level dashboards and insights. All these are available in reports that can be generated. An X factor here is the account manager that you would be assigned. So they'll work with you to help customize reports and get that data fed over to you. But now, how can we actually take this and really drive into what is going on? So this is where Explore comes into play. A couple of things that I'll mention here. You can see that we are breaking it down by attendees, NPS, and sales. So the same measurements, that we were looking at before. You can look at these by experience names. I told you I was going to default to a kind of overarching NPS and looking at the effect and attendee range on all experiences overall. So that's the avenue that I'm going to take. And then you could break down dimensions and industry average as well. So let's take a look first, starting with the guest age group. So for this particular period of time, as it's loading, what I can look at and discern from here is that our largest percentage of attendees are falling into this 21 to 30-year-old range. And then you've got the subsequent breakdown from others. So that's interesting to me because I can actually see, where we're getting the most, most participation. I can actually look and then add another dimension here to look at gender. So if I wanted to see the breakdown by gender, or if I wanted to actually look at the customer type, how far they're traveling, I can do that from here as well. So a new feature that we've added, one of the things that I've seen in working with customers is when they get this type of data is they really want to figure out like, how am I stacking up? So maybe we're over-indexing on 21 to 30. Maybe we need to really start putting more time and effort in the example that Shalin said, really catering to a different age group to see how much more we can be well-rounded when it comes to these demographics. So I could compare this and look at industry average. Now, when I get this, what's interesting is that I can see compared to the industry in this age group, I'm significantly under-indexing on the 21 to 30 and over-indexing a bit on some of the others. So a next logical step in working through this with our customers is to go then and take a look at and see on our biggest percentage of attendees, and perhaps we're under-indexing a bit, what does our NPS score look like with that age category? So when I go and look at this data, what I can see is it's not our lowest NPS, but it is our second lowest. And this is, our primary audience and the number of visitors that we have are coming in this age range. Again, I can start to look at the industry average here. When I do that, what I'm going to be able to see is that we are significantly below the industry average. It's not we're overall in promoter category here, but it's not where we want to be. And we really want to take the next logical step to take a look at and see what is actually contributing to that particular NPS score. So that's where we get into the feedback. A couple of things that I'll mention. We did I talked about this, how we're going across all experiences. You can filter out by certain experiences if you wanted to look at the feedback there as well. You could start to actually, if you want to just look at the detractors, you can isolate those. Passes, promoters, you can do that. So feedback analysis in the forms and the follow-ups, the surveys that we send, there is a ton of free-form text that we allow the guests to put in. And what that's doing is allowing you to really pick up on the sentiment, the topics that are coming across when it comes to both positive and negative NPS scores. So what we're looking at right now, these are the attributes that are coming across. So there's a positive impact when it comes to staff. We're doing something well there. I look at tour as being a positive here, but then also on the negative side of things, that's coming up too. So it is possible across some experiences, you could see these on both sides, but we really want to dig into what about the tour is causing this negative impact. So as I click into that, what's going to happen is it's picking up on those top attributes. So forgettable, expensive, underwhelming. That's exactly how we were to go in and figure out what Shalom was talking about, as we saw things where they were talking about it was too long, too much walking, too expensive, and they were able to really take steps to fix that and improve that NPS score. So now I can actually go look at each person's feedback. We do have ratings for if you have guides or people that are operating, booths at a trade show or a pop-up event for a field activation. You can assign resources through AnyRoad there, and you can get ratings there. So one thing I'll mention is it's not, something to beat someone down that's not necessarily getting good ratings. What you want to do is take what's going really well from others and start to see how you can, mirror that across other experiences. In this particular instance, so we didn't land with Janet. We could see a couple of the things that she mentioned here as being issues. We could start to take all that data, work through it, and figure out what we could do. But in the interest of really trying to reach out to these individuals that are contributing, we could send a message directly to Janet. So if you wanted to offer something to her, another experience to invite her to, these are just things that you could try to do to help move the needle and get them back on the promoter, being a promoter of your brand as well. So just a really quick way to go through, look at all these different areas and attributes within the natural language processing side of things. I mentioned that we did not go over Experience Manager. So I wanted to just give you a quick look through everything in Atlas here. We're more than happy to meet with you and talk about Experience Manager and the operational side of things and how you've got to get everything set up to start feeding into this as well. But that was what I wanted to show today. And what I'll do is stop sharing now, Shalin, and if we have questions, we can certainly go through and answer those.
Thank you, Mark. That was a fantastic demonstration. I'm going to just open up the Q&A window here. Just a reminder, please submit questions. We've got plenty of time to take questions. And so submit them to the Q&A widget. I see a couple here that I'm going to go ahead and start answering, but feel free to add in more while I answer these. So one question is about industry benchmarks. It just says, tell me a little bit more about industry benchmarks. Seems like a valuable capability. So to give you a little bit more context, with AnyRoad's deep customer base in a couple of key industries, what we're able to do is anonymously aggregate that data and to layer it onto what you saw through Explore. What that does is it allows you, like Mark said, to see how you stack up. So whether that's, and the beauty of it is it's not just an aggregate of saying, hey, the average NPS score of experiences is 50. You can segment it by demographic. You can see if, let's use a brewery example again. If you're a brewery, you can see the average brewery has X percentage of people attending that are not customers, or the average number of people that are attending from a certain age band. And so you can see how you stack up, how you compare, which can be incredibly informative to helping build out new experiences and tours, or even used in some of your marketing for who to try to target. Not to ramble on that, but another example is where people are coming from. So Mark showed the kind of distance calculation that we're able to do to identify where people are coming from. And so there is a lot of focus on, hey, if you have people that are visiting, that are tourists versus living locally, that can change a lot of how you want to run your experience. And so knowing that, knowing what the average is for most industries can be very helpful. I see.
One thing I'll add to that, Shalin, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
one thing I'll add to that is we've had a lot of partners that have actually wanted to, maybe not in just a particular, industry like a KDA or whatever, non-KDA, whatever it may be, but they want to see that type of industry average across all. AnyRoad's customer base, since experiences are what we do. So that's something that we can look into as well if you're interested to see an overall customer base industry average and AnyRoad as well.
That's a great point. I see a question here. Mark, you can keep me honest on this. Will this work in countries outside the US? Yep, we have customers outside of the US for sure. So everything we just mentioned, unless Mark is going to correct me, can be used in countries outside the US. We're happy to talk about your specific country. If there's language translations and things of that nature that are required, we could talk to you about that. But yes, works outside the US.
You're good.
All right. Another question is, Mark, you alluded to the operational side versus Atlas. So we do think of the platform as those two capabilities. One of these questions is, when are people using Atlas? How often are they using it? So like Mark mentioned, brands use AnyRoad to run their experiences. So I'll use those two examples often. If you're a retailer, you have classes in your stores, like Michael's, a customer of ours, and let's use a brewery that is having tours of their brewery. They're using the operational side of the platform day in and day out anytime those are happening, right? So this can be a plugin on your website where people can sign up for experiences, check in, then the full circle through to the feedback that we showed. In terms of Atlas and looking at the data, people are using it for all sorts of things, particularly weekly or monthly recaps or summaries. So a lot of times, if you're reporting up the chain or reporting across the organization to talk about how experiences are performing, what's happened, what's changing. A lot is obviously changing in the world right now. So I know that's happening a lot. This is a great way to go get that information to pull into those presentations or put into those summaries. So, that's generally when people are logging in. It varies by brand and kind of how many experiences they're running, but we're seeing it used more and more often as a way to quickly access reporting and insights, especially for to share internally within your organization. It's also a great way if you're someone who's running experiences and has had trouble kind of convincing people to get budget for more experience or talk about the impact. This is a great way to show and make that business case. Another question, this one looks like Mark would be a good one for you to answer, which would be, can I filter Atlas based off specific questions I asked, for example, purchase horizon?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so there, you saw on the insights reports and things like that, we could customize some of those dashboards when you want to filter down based on the purchase horizon. So that could be a future add to explore and being able to dive into that. We're going to be able to help you with the account manager, by the way, who can actually run some custom reports and things like that for you on those specific questions. So it's a yes and no. So right now, in the current state of where Explorer is, it's not something you can dive into by question, but we can pull that data for you and be able to get that through our account management team. And on a future iteration, possibly in the first half of this year, we'd be able to have more filters going on to the question level. That's a really great question, Jeff. Thanks for that.
Excellent. One more question. Have you worked with fast-moving consumer goods, namely beauty products? Yeah, we work with a lot of companies in the consumer goods space. What we find that's similar between that and the examples that we gave is that is the fact that you're running experiences to drive some behavior, usually loyalty or purchase from your consumers. One of the products on the operational side that we didn't talk about, but we would be happy to talk to you about after the fact, is the different products we have to run experiences. So, we have a couple of different capabilities that can help from anything from an in-store experience to someone who's out in the field who just needs an app on an iPad, to possibly even for, I know you mentioned beauty products. I'm not sure if this is something you're doing, but if you have kind of brand ambassador type of scenarios, there are ways that we could talk to you about how to pull all that data together. I think the common thread across all of those, especially if these are experiences that are out in the field, is that there's just disparate data. So different people are running experiences all over the place, and consolidating that into one view can be challenging. So if that's something that's interesting to you, definitely something we can follow up with offline.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, part of what I'm doing here on the pre-sale side, we do work in that space, and I've had a lot of conversations, and we've got some customers there, so we're more than happy to talk through specific use cases and things that we can do to help you out on that front.
All right, I don't see any other questions. I'll give it a minute if anyone wants to throw another one in there, and we can take it.
I think we just got one more in the chat. It says attendees is the actual number of guests checked in for an experience, or is it for all bookings, whether a guest attends an experience or not? That's a really good question. So these would be all guests that attended the event. You'd be able to see the attendees there. You'd still be able to pull all the number of bookings and everyone that that was at or signed up for an experience but didn't attend. But all the data that you're getting from Atlas would be those that attended.
Excellent. Yeah, Mark brought up an excellent point on, I think, question about filtering by specific questions too, is all of the data that's in the platform, we can surface to you through either reports within the platform or through your account management team. And we're using the feedback from our customers on the most common things you want to see to add into Explore, and can consider adding more of those things over time too. In this scenario, for example, if registrations versus attendees versus check-ins, some of those different nuances are things we can definitely consider. All right. Well, if no more questions, we can give everyone some time back. Anything to add, Mark?
No, just really appreciate everyone attending. Would love to connect and go through some additional use cases with you to answer any other questions that you may not have gotten asked here. But again, really appreciate everyone attending, and thanks for everything, Shalin, as well.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.